It's a perfectly engineered material, but we didn't invent it.
Welcome to Real Talk English. Today, we are diving into the story of something you probably use every single day, rubber. It's got this incredible history, but also a surprisingly dangerous future. We're going to break it all down based on an awesome explainer from Veritasium. Let's jump right in.
What happens if I heat up this rubber band? When you heat materials like glass or plastic?
Okay, so let me start by asking you a question. What do you think happens when you heat up a rubber band? Most things, they get weaker, they stretch out when they get hot, but rubber, it does the complete opposite. It actually pulls back even stronger. And this weird little fact is the key to understanding why rubber is just so special. So what is it that makes rubber so different, so essential to, well, everything in modern life? Let's take a look at what makes it tick. Rubber has some seriously incredible properties. For one, it's waterproof, super useful, obviously. It can stretch like 10 times its own length and then just snap right back. But the craziest part? As it's breaking, it actually gets tougher. How weird is that? But, it wasn't always this miracle material we know today. For a long, long time, natural rubber had this huge, sticky, gooey problem that made it pretty much useless. And this is where our story really begins. A story of failure, of never giving up, and, well, a very lucky accident. So, back in the 1830s, there was this big rubber craze in the US. Everyone was so excited, thinking, wow, waterproof shoes and coats. The only problem? These things were a total disaster. In the summer heat, they'd melt into this sticky, smelly goo. And then in the winter, they'd get hard and just shatter. Not great. And for companies trying to sell this stuff, like the Roxbury India Rubber Company, it was a complete catastrophe. Imagine this. Customers are returning thousands of these useless products. Then a manager goes to open a warehouse and finds that everything has melted into one giant, disgusting-smelling pile. To put it mildly, then things went from bad to worse. So this expression, went from bad to worse, it's just perfect, right? It means a situation that was already pretty awful just got even more terrible. The company was already losing a bunch of money, and now they had warehouses full of rotting, smelly rubber. Yeah, they were in some seriously deep trouble. Okay, and this is where our main character, Charles Goodyear, steps onto the scene. He was an inventor, but he was also super deep in debt. So when the manager of that Roxbury company showed him this melted rubber mess, he basically laid down a challenge. He said, if anyone could figure out how to make rubber stable, that person would stand to make a ton of money. And that phrase, stand to make a ton of money, it's pretty clear, right? It just means you're in a position where you could get very rich. So for Goodyear, this giant, sticky problem, it wasn't a failure. It was his golden ticket. He was absolutely determined to be the guy who finally figured out rubber. But let me tell you, Goodyear's journey was not easy at all. He spent years just experimenting, borrowing money, and failing over and over and over again. He got so poor that he was sent to debtor's prison multiple times, but he never gave up. He even did his experiments inside his jail cell. His persistence is really a huge part of what makes this story so amazing. And then one day, an accident changed everything. It was 1839. He's messing around with rubber and sulfur, and he accidentally dropped a piece on a hot stove. When he went to scrape it off, he found that instead of melting, it had charred and hardened. That was it. That was the big breakthrough moment. Let's look at that phrasal verb he used, scrape it off. It's exactly what it sounds like, right? You're removing something from a surface using something hard, like scraping burnt stuff off a pan. So you can just imagine him trying to clean up this little mess he made, and then suddenly realizing he just stumbled upon something incredible. So what Goodyear discovered is a process we now call vulcanization, and it's actually pretty simple when you break it down. You mix rubber with sulfur, you add some heat, and the sulfur atoms create these strong, flexible links between the long rubber chains. A great way to think about it is like tying a bunch of loose spaghetti strands together to make a really strong net. So just how different was this new rubber? Well, in the original video, they actually recreate the whole process. They take this piece of soft rubber, vulcanize it, and then try to pull it apart. And someone just yells, "Now it's like wicked hard." The change was just night and day. That phrase, wicked hard, is such a great piece of American slang, especially from New England, which is actually where all this happened. Wicked just means very or extremely, so wicked hard means it's super strong, super tough. It just perfectly captures how much that rubber had changed. And honestly, Goodyear's invention made our modern world possible. I mean, think about it. Tires, medical stuff, we depend on it for everything. But, and this is a big but, this total dependence has created a massive hidden risk that we are facing right now. Okay, so here's the problem. Almost all of the world's natural rubber comes from clones of just one type of tree, and they're almost all grown in Southeast Asia. This makes our entire supply so vulnerable. The original explainer puts it bluntly, it's a source at risk of being wiped out. So when we say wiped out, we mean completely destroyed, gone. And in this case, there's a disease called South American leaf blight that could kill these trees. And because all the trees are basically identical twins, genetically speaking, the disease could just spread like wildfire and destroy the entire supply. Everything. And the consequences? They would be absolutely devastating. An expert in the original video gives this really chilling warning. He says, if Salb, that's the leaf blight, gets established in Southeast Asia, then you're talking about a complete global societal meltdown. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but this is a very real threat. So let's just break down that term for a second. Global societal meltdown. This isn't just a small hiccup. We're talking about a total collapse of society as we know it, all around the globe. Think about it. Without natural rubber for tires, we couldn't get food to cities. It would be an absolute catastrophe. And this number really shows you the scale of the problem. Over 90%, more than 90% of all natural rubber comes from that one single vulnerable region. We have literally built our modern world on a material that could, poof, disappear almost overnight. That's a pretty shocking thought. All right, so let's do a super quick recap of the words and expressions we learned today. We had went from bad to worse, stand to make a ton of money, scrape it off, the slang wicked hard, wiped out, and the very serious global societal meltdown. And what are the big ideas to remember from this story? Well, first, rubber is this totally unique material that does some very strange things. Second, it was Charles Goodyear's lucky accident, discovering vulcanization, that turned this weird substance into something our world can't live without. And third, and this is the scary part, we are now dangerously dependent on just one source for this critical material. And with all that, you are totally ready to check out the original video from Veritasium. It's an awesome way to test your understanding, and the link is right down in the description. And I have a question for you. Considering how much we depend on it, what do you think is the best way to protect our rubber supply? Let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and if you liked this explainer, please hit that like button and subscribe for more.